what would we do there if we went to Banias besides just it being beautiful?
Well, the Park Service has built hiking trails, and people like to go along the river and see the falls and go back into the cave. And then, of course, the most spectacular find at Banias was the palace. You see, I mentioned this was built by Herod Philip, who was a king over a little territory, a little monarchy up in the north in Galilee, or above Galilee. And then his descendants for almost 100 years had their capital in Banias. So we actually found the royal palace.
Is this Nimrod's?
No, well, Nimrod, there's a little stream called Nimrod's Stream, because up on a hill up above Banias, there's a Crusader period castle. And the local people there, the sort of tribesmen who lived there, called it Nimrod's Palace. So they've given the stream that name. It really didn't have anything to do with the Nimrod who's mentioned in the Bible. But this palace dates from the Roman times, and it was apparently the palace. It was probably built by Herod Agrippa, who was a nephew or grandnephew of Herod Philip.
Was he the son, or no, he was a nephew? Sorry.
Yeah, it's a little complicated family. The Herods are very hard to figure out. For one thing, they married several times. They had children by several different women. There are lots of half-brothers and half-sisters and cousins and second cousins and all that kind of thing. But it was a town that was where there's this Herodian palace. And there are not many places that survive from ancient times where you can actually walk down the hall in a house, so to speak, that a biblical character lived in. But Herod Agrippa is mentioned in the New Testament. There's a story about the Apostle Paul when he's been made a prisoner in the other Caesarea. This is Caesarea Philippi. There's another Caesarea called Caesarea Maritima. And he's in prison there, and he's brought for a hearing before Herod Agrippa. Oh, this Herod Agrippa is the one whose palace we found.
Wow.
So that's kind of nice. That seldom happens that you have somebody mentioned in the Bible that you actually can find their house, so to speak. So, but that's the most spectacular find there. And there are, a lot of it is still there. It was all, we found only the first floor, which was now all underground, but at the time it was above ground. And I mean, while we're on the topic, the discovery was a wonderful thing, because there were some young men from Greece who had volunteered to help. And they're digging. And then we had come to the last day of the dig. On the last day of the dig, you sweep, you clean up and sweep. Well, these young men were very macho, and they couldn't believe someone was going to ask them to take a broom and sweep. So when we turned our eyes away from them, they got out their picks and shovels and started digging again. They weren't supposed to. They were supposed to be finished for the year. And one of them, suddenly the dirt began to fall in instead of out. And he looked down and he said to the others, "Somebody get a light. You're not going to believe this." And then he put his feet in and very foolishly jumped in, because it could have been 100 feet down. He didn't know. As it turned out, it was a long passageway.
Wow.
And no one had been in there since ancient times. And it was part of this palace. So that's the way we found it. Had no idea it was there. No one knew it was there. And then we began to uncover it, and we found that it was a gigantic place with the halls going everywhere, and courtyards, and little fountains, and beautiful mosaic floors, and all that sort of thing.
Thank goodness he did that.
Yeah, right. He still got in trouble, but he wasn't supposed to do it, but he did make a wonderful find.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Now, there's other biblical, historical Banias. That's where Jesus, is that where Jesus brought the disciples?
Right. People who are familiar with the New Testament, whenever you say Caesarea Philippi, they think of one particular story, because in the Gospels, in the New Testament, it tells about Jesus going with some of his disciples. It says to the region of Caesarea Philippi. And that's the place where he has a discussion with Peter, and he says, "Who do people say that I am?" And they say, "Well, one of the prophets or something." "And who do you say that I am?" So that saying where Jesus accepts the title of Messiah took place there at Caesarea Philippi. And that's how a lot of people know. They don't even know that there was also this beautiful city there. The thing is, these cities had long histories. When I wrote the book, I tried to do something that's often not done with sites in the Holy Land. I tried to take the whole history of the city, all the way from the time when Herod Philip built it, down to 1967, when the Israelis took over the Golan Heights.
Six-Day War?
The Six-Day War, and took control of the city. So, and I like to boast to people, I can tell you the name of someone who lived in Banias in every century from the time of approximately Alexander the Great until my own time. I mean, the city has that long history, and it can be reconstructed. So what I did was to try to show one city through 2,000 years, basically, of history. And that's the wonderful thing about the Middle East. Everything's been there for so long, you know.
Everything is so beautiful throughout this whole area. Why do we call the Holy Land the Holy Land?
Well, of course, it's an interesting thing about just a tiny bit of real estate, but the three of the major world religions all have their roots there, very strong roots there. And so it's a holy land in the sense that it's the land where these three great, I think you had earlier called them the Abrahamic faiths, as they all are tied. They're different faiths, Judaism and Christianity and Islam, but all three of those religions honor Abraham. And so that's why they call them the Abrahamic faiths. And it's amazing that one little bit of the earth that those three religions that have had so much influence and still have so much influence all came from there. So that's why it's a holy. It's not the Holy Land because people are holier there. People who travel there sometimes are kind of stunned to see that they're just people like any place else. And you could go to Tel Aviv and you would think you were, you know, in some Western. I mean, there are the disco things and the nightclubs and the beaches with the people in bikinis, and you think, I thought this was the Holy Land, you know. But it's just it's a place like any other place, but its history is what makes it holy.
And there's so much to see and do there. I mean, in Tel Aviv, I mean, the beaches are beautiful. It's wonderful. Jaffa, the city, the ancient, I mean, it's all ancient. I mean, we're talking, what is this? This is like maybe more than 6,000 years old. I mean, what do we know about the...
In fact, there are caves in Israel where they have found the remains of some of the most ancient humans have been found there. It was you know, it was the cradle of civilization in so many ways. The whole Middle East was, but particularly that area. And Israel had the fortune or misfortune of being between great world powers. You know, Egypt on the south, Assyria on the north, and you come to modern days, and for many years during the Cold War, you had America and the West on one side, you had Russia and China as an ally on the other, and right in the middle is little Israel, you know. So it's always been considered a very valuable piece of real estate, even though it's a little scrawny place in many ways. But it was just it was at the intersection of so many world powers. There's a crossroads close to the ancient mound of Megiddo. And there's the saying that whoever controls that crossroads, whoever could put a traffic cop out there and control that intersection, can rule the world. That was considered to literally be the crossroads of civilization, and it's been like that for really thousands of years.
And that's where I've heard Armageddon is supposed to take
place? Yeah. The mound is called Megiddo, and so you put the word Ar, or Har, meaning valley, Armageddon, the valley of Megiddo. And the ancient tradition was that the final battle, the last battle of the earth, will be fought in that valley. and that all the armies of the world will get. But of course, during different times in history, different people have thought different people would be fighting each other. I remember in the days of the Cold War, everybody thought, well, the Americans are going to fight the Russians in the Valley of Megiddo, you know. And that changes every generation or two, our idea of what the final battle is going to be. So.
Is Banias anywhere close to Mesopotamia?
Well, as you get, Banias is just before you go over into Syria. And then after Syria, you get into Iraq. And Iraq